Hi, in this video I'm going to show you a practical example of how to use layers. We're going to get several images and combine them together to create a photo montage. Okay, let's dig in. My name is Ken Fisher and this is LiveLink Training. Now in my last video I explained the mechanics of how layers worked. And one of my viewers suggested that it might be useful to have some real-world examples of using layers, as well to help the understanding in more practical ways. And I thought this was a great idea. So here goes. So first let's have a look at a comparison, and I've tried to make it a little bit 3D, so hopefully it'll help you understand layers. So here I've got two documents open. On the left hand side I've got a layered document. And on the right hand side I've got the same three layers but in like a little bit of a 3D look. Okay, so let's start with this one. On the left hand side here I've got my background layer, which is a picture of a tree against a sunset. Now if I go over to the right hand side here, what I've done is I've just laid it down. I've made it look like a little bit of a photograph that we've just laid on a table, but there's all transparency around the outside. Okay, so let's add a layer. So on this I've got a sunset tree text layer. So if I switch that on, you'll see that I've now got text and it says sunset tree, and if I click on it I can move it round because it's a separate layer and because it's above the background in the layer stack. Okay, let's have a look at that real world. If I click on the left now and I bring in my second layer, which is my text layer, you'll see that I've made it a little bit white, but what that's just to represent is that you can see through it. So basically I've got a complete layer and I can see through it. It's like cling film or acetate or whatever, you can see through it. But I can drag it and move it around now, so I can move this relative to the layer underneath. But when you look at it from above, what you'll see is the sunset tree text before everything else, and then anywhere that's transparent you see straight through to the underlying layer, which is exactly what we've got over here. Okay, let's do that again. So we'll go back to the left hand side and we'll add another layer of somebody watching the sunset with a nice sunsetty glow on them. And again, this is on a separate layer, so we can move this around wherever and position it wherever we want to position it. So now let's have a look at that real world again. So now we've got a third layer and it's got these pixels on, but everywhere else is transparent. And again, we can move this layer around to fit it anywhere we like. So basically you've got this one is the top layer, so that's what we see first. What we see is the figure, and then everywhere else is transparent, so we can now see through to the second layer, which has got the sunset text on the sunset tree. And then anywhere that's transparent on that layer we can see right through to the bottom layer. So this is the object of layers, that we can keep things separate. And now if I just register them, if I just bring that down and say, let's imagine we're flattening this, then if I bring them all down together, there you can see that you've got your sunset tree, which is here. You've got your weird little figure, which is here. But you can see through both of those layers to the bottom layer, which is the sunset tree. And we can move each of these independently. That being said, let's go and have a look at a more practical application of using layers. Right, one really popular use of layers is to make a montage, like this here. Now I recently went to see the Flying Scotsman returning to York Station, and I'd like to record the occasion. Now rather than a lot of individual images, I'd like to put several images together in a montage like this. Now if you'd like these images to play with, there's a link to download them in the notes underneath the video. So let's have a look. Let's have a start. So here we've got some images to play with. We've got this one and that one and that one and that one. So first I've got to find a nice background image. Well, I think my black and white one is a good background starting point, and then I'm going to put all the other images on top of it. And in my layers panel here, just make that a bit wider, you can see that I've just got my one background layer. So now I need to find another image to use. So let's go and select one. We'll say this one. So I need my move tool. So I'm going to click on the move tool in the toolbar, or I'm going to press V on the keyboard. And then I'm going to click somewhere in the image and I'm going to drag it over the top of my black and white image. And then I'm going to pause for a minute just while it comes to the front, and then I'm going to drag it back and I'm going to let it go. So you can see what happened now in the layers panel. I've now got two layers. I've got my move tool active, and I can actually move this separately from the bottom layer, from the background layer. Now it's a bit big, so I'm going to make it smaller. So I'm going to use Control and T to go into free transform mode. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and then drag so it makes it smaller but in proportion. I've now let go of the Shift key and I can click and drag to reposition this. So we'll put it somewhere, let's say there. I'll make it a bit smaller. Again, yeah, something like that. And then I'll double click inside the transform to accept it, or you can go to the tool options bar and click the tick. Now it doesn't blend in very well, so what I'm going to do is add an effect now, and to try and make it look like a little bit of a photograph. So I'm going to go down to my FX icon at the bottom of the layers panel to add layer styles. And then I'll click on blending options to bring me everything up. So I've now got my layer style dialog box open. And what I want to do is add a stroke. So I'm going to click on this first stroke, because now you can have multiple strokes, which is good. And I'll leave this set to black. And I'll just leave it to be a little bit of a, see if I make that, I make that really thick. Well, all I want is this just to be a little tiny line around the outside, just to offset it from the background. Well, that's good enough. I'm happy with that. I've now got a second stroke which I can add. And if you want another stroke, all you do is just click the plus button. But this stroke, I'm going to say I want a white stroke round it. So I'm going to go into that stroke there and see we've got the colour set to white. It's set to inside as a position, so this will make the edges nice and square. And then I can change the size of the white, and I'll put it down to about, let's say 6 pixels. I think that doesn't look bad as a little bit of a photograph. And then I'll also add a little bit of a drop shadow, just to try and give it a little bit of a separation from the background, to make it look like this is sitting on top of the other image. So drop shadow, I'll leave it set at 30 degrees, and you'll see that it's just sticking out at the bottom, just here you can see it. So I'll soften it a little bit as well, and we'll give it a little bit of size. Okay, well, we'll see how that looks in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to click OK to accept all that, because I'm happy now that that looks okay. What I'll do is I'll just drag that down to a lighter area, just have a look at that drop shadow. You can see it there. It's a bit hard really, so I'm going to go back into my drop shadow. So I'm going to double click on the drop shadow, and then I'll try and soften it a little bit with the size. And probably the spread, just bring it in a little bit so it doesn't stick out as much, and the distance. That's better, I like that better. Okay, click OK, and then I'll put that back. Okay, let's do that again. So let's pick one of the other images. So we'll try this one. Again, move tool, click and drag it back and let it go. Same type of thing, Control and T. I'm going to make it smaller, and then what I'll do is I'll just use the first one as a bit of a template. So you can see I've got the smart guides on, and they let me line it up at the top. So what I'm going to do now is hold the shift key down and drag the bottom up until I get it more or less the same size. Happy with that. And I'll double click to accept it. Now I'd like the same effects as on this image on this one, so I don't want to have to go around and duplicate them again. So what you can do is, if I click on this layer 1, which is where the effects are, if you hold the Alt key down and drag the effects, you can copy them from one layer to another. So if I drag and drop now onto there, and I'll copy exactly those effects onto this one. Okay, so I'll drag that over this side and leave it there. And we'll find another image. Let's find this one. I'm going to click, and drag it up and drop it in. Control and T. Drag it down. It's a bit repetitive, this. And do the same again now. I'll use those magic guides just to line up one side. Hold the shift key down to line up the other side. Double click on it and then again copy the effects. So I'm holding the Alt key down and I'm dragging it and I'm dropping it, and now that's putting the same effects on this one, and then I'll drag that somewhere here, say. And then I think we've got a fourth one. Have we got that? No, we've used that one. Oh, we've got this one. Yeah, so we'll drag that one up as well and we'll put that one in. Again, much too big. Control and T will transform it down to a reasonable size. Match it up. Hold the shift key down. That's about right. And then we'll copy the effects again. And it doesn't matter which one you copy it from, so I'll hold the Alt key down, click and drag to copy the effects onto that layer. And then I'll drag that and put it somewhere up here, like that. Okay, I'm liking this. Right, let's try and finish it off a little bit with a little bit of text. So I'm going to go over to my type tool. I'm going to select a nice text. Well, I like this brush script one, so, and I've got white as my foreground colour because that's what the colour of the text is going to be. And I'm going to click and I'm going to type York Station, and then I've put a return in 2016, and I'll just position that somewhere at the bottom like that. Yeah, like that. And then I'm going to press the return key or the enter key to accept that. Now it's still not really standing out enough, this text here, this York Station, so I'm going to add an effect to it. So I'm going to go back down to my FX icon, click on it, and we'll try a drop shadow. And that's a little bit big, so well, I'll just drop that down and drop that down. I just want a little bit of separation from that background. I think that'll do fine. I'll click OK. Now I still don't think that this text here is standing out that well. So what I'd like to do is to paint with some paint behind it, just to give it a bit more separation. Now I'm going to do that again on a separate layer. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layers panel and I'm going to click on the layers at this new layer icon here. And what it's going to do is it's going to put me a brand new empty layer. Well, I'd like this layer to be underneath the text. So I'm going to click and drag it and wait till I get that little line appear, and then I'm going to drop it underneath the text. That looks good. Now there's nothing changed yet because now I'm going to paint on that layer. Now I'm going to select a brush, and the one that I've looked at, there's some unique looking brushes here, but the one that I like is these. If I hover over it, it'll tell you what they are. This is a charcoal, and we've got a chalk, and we've got a hand pastel. But we'll go for the charcoal because it's a little bit of an odd shaped brush, but it does give interesting effects. We'll use the square brackets to make this brush bigger, something like that. And then I'd like to pick a colour that's probably a little bit complementary. So what I'll do, I like this these warm tones in this image. So I'm going to choose that colour, and you can do that when you've got the brush tool active. If you hold the Alt key down, your cursor changes to a little like an eyedropper. And now when I go around, and let's say I'll pick that colour, so when I click, you'll see you get a little circle that's now selected that colour. And if you look over in the colour picker, you'll see that that's now my foreground colour, and that's what my paintbrush is going to paint with. So now I'm going to go down, and I'm on my layer 5, which is my paint layer that I'm going to use under the York Station text, and I'll just start painting. Well, I'll just put another bit up there. I quite like that. Yeah, that's good. Now I'll try, I don't know whether it'll work this. Let's imagine I fancy a little bit of a drop shadow on this as well. So if I hold the Alt key down and drag that effect, and we'll drag it and drop it onto that layer and see what it does. Oh yeah, okay, I can live with that. I quite like that. To finish off, I really think that this background layer is a little bit too dominant. I'd like to fade it a little bit. And I can try to do that. If I go down to the bottom of the layers panel, you can see it's my background layer. And I'm going to click on it. Now you can see that the opacity and the fill sliders of this layer are greyed out because it's a background, it's got this padlock on. So I'll just drag that in the bin just to turn it into a normal layer. And now I can drop its opacity. So I'll click and I'll drag, and you'll see that now that don't look so good, does it? Because what we're actually seeing now is the checkerboard pattern, because I'm making it opaque and I've got nothing underneath it. So I'm just basically fading it to transparency, which doesn't look good. So to get over this, I'm going to put a layer underneath it and fill it with white paint. Okay. We go down and we click on the new layer icon. That gives us a new empty layer. I'll just drag that down a bit so you can see it, and there it is. It's in the wrong position. It's above the background layer. I want it below the background layer. So I'm going to click it and drag it and drop it underneath. And now I need to fill this with white paint. So to do that, I need white as my foreground colour. So I'm going to press the D key on the keyboard to reset the foreground and background colours. And now my white is the background colour. So I'm going to press the X key to toggle that foreground colour to white. And then there's a lovely keyboard shortcut for fill from foreground colour, and that's Alt and your backspace key. And now I'm filling with opacity against a white background. So now if I go back to my background layer, my train layer, and I can vary this to suit. I can fade it right out or bring it in. I think somewhere around there is about right for me. So there we have it, real world application for layers. Now we've added layers, we've moved layers, we've created new layers, and we've added styles and effects to layers. And we've also created opacity against layers. I hope that was useful. If it was, give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment below the video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos on Photoshop or Lightroom. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.